Hello, welcome to this live where I'll be talking about three ways to handle your fear of negative emotional reaction. First, some context. I used to be this person who used to really struggle giving difficult feedback. I always used to, I erred on the side of compassion and empathy. And a lot of times, I didn't really pass on what needed to be said. And in the long run, I saw how that was also hurting the people who were reporting into me. And so this live is going to focus on what I have learned by observing from others and applying into my own practice. And also what have the trend that I have seen that empathetic leaders sometimes go through, right? So there's two categories of people who deal with difficult feedback. One category of folks don't have an issue delivering the feedback, but that can come across as lacking empathy or lacking compassion, right? And we are not going to focus too much on that. We're going to focus on the other category, which is people who have a genuine fear of sharing feedback, especially on an area which is perceived as negative. So first, let's kind of dive into why that happens, why we feel that. So from a psychology standpoint, we all have this core need of approval, right? I want approval from others, and I especially want to be liked. I don't want to be judged. I don't want to be criticized. I don't want to be kind of looked down upon. And a lot of people high on empathy fear that if they say something which creates an emotional reaction, that it's a direct judgment on them, right? And so the key is to recognize that it is not really giving difficult feedback is not simply a communication challenge. It actually has to deal with your own emotions and ability to be with emotions. So one of the things I have realized through my own experience growing as a coach over the last 5 to 7 years is that all judgment is self-judgment. Let me explain what I mean by that. Um, People around you, it could be your boss, it could be your peer, it could be somebody. But when they give some feedback to you, if you at your core is judging that about yourself, then that's going to kind of prick you. That's kind of going to make it very difficult to absorb. So when especially leaders want to go and give feedback, what they are not fearing is the emotional reaction of that person. What they're actually fearing is that that person's judgment on them, which at some level they are judging in themselves. So the first step is really to expand your emotional self-awareness, right? Here's the truth about difficult feedback. The recipient is almost always going to have an emotional reaction. There is no denying that. We are human beings, and as much as people try to put on a poker face of sorts, their body language, something or the other, gives it away. So when you're about to go into a room wanting to give difficult feedback, the first step is to recognize that whatever is their reaction is not an indictment about you. Your job is to take 100% responsibility. And the way I define 100% responsibility is this: I take 100% responsibility as the giver of the feedback to share what I have observed and what I believe will be in service of you. You, as the recipient, is responsible for absorbing the feedback and taking steps to apply that feedback to become better. And so when you can kind of make space for different emotions, like people can react with sadness, people can react with disappointment, people can react with anger. There's all sorts of emotional reactions that you're going to get. And the more you can develop your capacity to be with these emotions and give space for that, because the person on the other end is a human being, he or she is going to have an emotional reaction. So in the coaching world, we call it as look at the other person, look at everyone as naturally creative and resourceful and whole. And what that means is they have the capacity, even in that moment, if they go through an emotional reaction, that is okay. It's not about me. They're also, as, and this is why you're having this empathy is a powerful strength, because people will feel that. So know that when you show up with empathy and when you can just give space for the emotional reaction, it's not about you. Take just 100% responsibility for what you can control, which is sharing honest feedback in a compassionate way. Uh, Here's the second way that you can lean into dealing with this fear and kind of moving forward. Uh, One of the mindset that people often grapple with when going into a call is, oh my God, what if this person judges me? I don't want to be judged. I don't know what to do if they have an emotional reaction. So you're kind of making it about you. If you can shift it to, it's not about me, it's not about them, it's about us. It's about this relationship that we are building. It's about, I'm sure you look at any relationship in your life, any relationship that thrives on authenticity and honesty. You can look at your relationships with your family, relationships with your friends, the best friendships and family relationships. There's going to be some fights, there's going to be some disagreements, there's going to be arguments, but there's genuine care and there's genuine reciprocity in terms of honesty. So you owe it to yourself to be honest. Uh, and the way to do that is by clarifying your intention and setting the context. So here's how you do that. A lot of times people struggle to receive feedback because at some level they feel they are not ready, right? So your job is to first ask permission. Hey, do I have permission to share my feedback? Set the context of what this feedback is about. This feedback is about their growth. This feedback is about, in a sense, your relationship. You don't want to be in a relationship at work where there are what is called withholds. Like I withhold something about you and you withhold something about me. Well, that's what leads to politics, isn't it? Because you are not being honest. And these conversations tend to percolate outside of each other, which is what we call it as gossip. So the more you can kind of set this context of, I'm going to be honest with you, and I want your permission to be able to give you feedback because I have your back. So the second way is essentially to focus on the relationship and to communicate that and to communicate that sense of, this is not about a one-off thing. This is about the relationship, which is always going to grow. And the third piece, which can help you get over your fear of people having a negative emotional reaction, is to create more of psychological safety. And here's what I mean by that. What is psychological safety? Psychological safety is this feeling of somebody being seen, heard, and received. And so the way to do that is, instead of giving the feedback as, hey, you did this and you had this impact, and instead of the you focus language, shift to what you observed. Hey, I noticed you did that. I observed you did that. The more it can be an observation of what you saw. And if you ask them to kind of reflect on it, then it can be a healthy conversation. Feedback is not me telling you and then expecting you to just walk away. I'm going to tell you and then I'm going to set up a follow up call. Hey, did you have time to process? What did you come to realize? Because the more you can come from that sense of, hey, I see you, I want the best for you, I want to hear it from your perspective, that's what is going to improve the relationship. That's what is going to make feedback even more thriving. And I want to share a quick story that I learned from one of my bosses. And he actually used to get called into executive leaders' meetings because he could go and, after the meeting, give candid feedback in terms of what he observed. Hey, this is what I noticed you said, and this is the impact that the room had. And the reason it made it work was because he was not attached. He was not attached to the opinion. He was speaking his truth, and he was also showcasing it, genuinely caring for that executive's growth. And the interesting thing that I learned from him was that leadership is not about titles. Sometimes we feel that, oh, I'm a director, I'm not yet a VP. How do I communicate this feedback to a VP? Or how do I? No, you don't. You just look at every single person as an equal. And so even if you have somebody who's 2 levels below you or 2 levels above you, it doesn't matter. look at them as an equal and start practicing the habit of honesty, giving honest feedback and giving real time honest feedback on a consistent basis. I want to touch upon one more thing that I've seen often people grapple with. Uh, and this is about earlier biases. So last week I had a client come to me and I said, I always struggle with this client because I always struggle with this subordinate of mine because every time I go and give feedback, he just doesn't receive it. And I end up feeling frustrated, right? So notice what's happening. The giver of the feedback is giving the feedback. There's an emotional reaction. The giver of the feedback has an immediate emotional reaction to that emotion, right? And now it's like you are in a sense judging each other. There's a clear sense of I'm right, you are wrong, or this is not the right way to deal with it. So when that happens, the relationship kind of takes a backseat, and it actually is detrimental to actually giving feedback in the first place. And so the key is really tuning into your intention. Tuning into your intention. And I'm going to reiterate it again. There's three ways. I'm going to kind of highlight again the three ways of dealing with your own fear. The first step is to recognize that it's not about you. Their emotional reaction is theirs. You make space for them to have an emotional reaction, and you make space for yourself to have an emotional reaction, right? It's okay for you, but as long as you approach it with empathy, and as long as you can focus on asking their permission and giving it in a way that is more seen as an observation and focusing on the right intention, you're going to not only overcome your fear of whatever may show up, you're actually going to deepen your emotional capacity. And this is going to be the superpower that I see for pretty much all leaders wanting to become executives. Your ability to vision, sure. Your ability to build strategy, sure. But your ability to actually have emotional resilience and emotional intelligence and genuinely connect with people and build strong, honest relationships is going to be the backbone of your success. So I want to. I hope this has been useful, and I would love for you. I would love to invite you to my Friday support session. So this support session is not going to be just me giving you content in terms of, hey, here are what you need to do. It's going to be more interactive. There's going to be people coming in with genuine problems that they are facing at work. Everything will be confidential. No names will be shared. No company names will be shared. But people are going to get some actionable viewpoints in terms of mindset, in terms of perspectives, and in terms of actual ways of showing up. But I do believe strongly that the ability to master difficult feedback is essential not just to a successful career, but to a more rich and fulfilling career. When I look at my parents, when I look at the previous generation, one of the reasons they were in a sense happier was because they had more thriving relationships. And because in our generation we tend to shift around a lot, and we tend to also wear two hats at times, which is the professional hat and the personal hat. It can sometimes come in the way of building really strong, thriving relationships. And I think that's the superpower that I want for you. Deepening this ability to give difficult feedback in order to build amazing relationships that can truly help you thrive, succeed, and have a fulfilling life. I hope this live has been useful. And if you are interested, I'm going to put the link for the Friday registration in the chat, and I would love to see you there. Thank you.